Anitris and Joyce are excused with illness. We're still waiting. Well, we met with Debbie DeBacco last night. She didn't say anything about not being here, although I know she's putting in a lot of work. So we have a roll call. If we could all stand and pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Now, if we could review the agenda, there are a couple of items. There's one thing. The regular October board meeting or the regular January meeting is January 9th. Also, we have new business lawn care contract and also request for to have staff or volunteers participate in COVID testing out in the fairgrounds. And also information from the health department, which we can add to new business. Is there any other new or old business?
Just 1 second. I just wanted to let you guys know Debbie
Hearing
is
none,
here.
could I have a motion to accept the agenda as corrected?
I'll motion.
Dan has made a motion. Do I have a second? Carrie made a second. All on mute and say aye to approve.
Aye.
Aye.
I can't hear anyone. Oh, Debbie's here too.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, so that's approved. Public forum, we do have people observing. If any of them wish to speak, now would be the time. Make sure you have volume here. Oh yeah, it's on 2. Yeah. Okay, now I can hear. No, that's all right. All right. You all received the rough draft of the November 11th minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? If there are none, could I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, we have Gloria. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Debbie DeBacco seconds. All in favor, say aye. Or raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The treasurer's report, the financial report, excuse me. You received that in your pre-read packet. Are there any questions for the financial report? One thing you may notice as far as obviously with labor, we are well below budget because we were closed and because our hours are more limited than they were. We have saved money on that. Later on in finance, we'll be talking a little bit about something we might want to decide to do in January. If there are no questions or corrections, would somebody make the motion to accept the November Treasurer's financial report? Dan, a second, please. Can I have a second? Carrie? Or say aye or raise your hand, either one.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Right, the director's report, you received the director's report plus a report from Mike Magnuson for September through December. Are there any additions from the director's report? If not, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the executive committee did not meet. Could we have the personnel committee report?
I did email for earlier, well, this evening. We did meet, we had a meeting yesterday at 5:30 via Zoom. It was a Zoom meeting. And what we did, Greta had reviewed both of the New York State paid leave and the director's contract, which I guess we're going to discuss later. And then we did make the changes that Greta suggested to both. And hopefully before the end of the year, we want to discuss the staff raises for next year. And Greta suggested that we look at the paid family leave. So, and I'd just like to say, the meeting yesterday, we didn't sue only because we were talking about the contract, because usually we would invite her to all of our meetings. So I just don't want any misunderstanding as to why Betty Sue wasn't invited to the meeting yesterday. That's my.
So you all received, the proposal from the committee. It's a combination of both what Greta, our lawyer, sent us, Colquhoun, our lawyer, sent us, and what Paychex provided. They had a little more plain language, I guess I would say. And we are required under New York state law to provide now a regular sick leave. And that's outlined there. For every 30 hours a week you worked, you get up to 40 hours each calendar year. One of the things that Greta wanted to make sure is that employees will only be able to carry over 40 hours of sick leave per year, so that somebody can't carrying it over, so that have to have like 160 or 20 days is allowed to carry over 40 hours, which is if they work an 8-hour day, 5 days. They can accrue this starting in as of September 30th, so actually October 1, but it doesn't, they can't use it, any of this accrued time, until January 1. Any questions?
I actually had a question on this. You're saying that they will get 40 hours of sick time per year, for all employees or only full-time employees?
All employees will get it based on the number of hours they work.
Okay, so it won't be based on 40 hours. It'll be based on their regularly scheduled number of hours, be they 40 or 35 or 15,
Well,
correct?
they accumulate 30 hours. So if somebody works 15 hours a week, it would take them 2 weeks to accumulate 1 hour.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, could I, it does not need a second, a committee. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand, either one.
Which are we in favor of? There was two things. The paid sick leave from New York State?
Yes, that's what we're dealing with right now.
Okay. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is paid. The second part of that, because a few years ago, we had gone to a PTO, solely PTO, and which many employers did. And what we did is, my understanding is, and goes back a few years, almost 5 years now. What we did is we gave everybody I think we folded in 3 sick days. My understanding is. And so while the paid time off or vacation, all parts of it that have to do what it falls under, such as military, all those kind of things, doesn't change. The only thing change is paid for, there's a little chart. 1 year and 13, they get 2 to 4, 15, 5 to 14, 20, 15 or more, 30. And this goes back to the way it was basically 5 or 6 years ago. This would be the same kind of paid leave that they would receive at that point in time. It comes from a committee, so it doesn't require a second. Are there any questions or discussion?
So,
Seeing none.
so what would that be for, like, I mean, you have all the information in front of you. What does it actually mean for someone working right now?
What it mean?
How's it changing?
So well, we don't have anybody who's only had 1 year of service. So we have some people who are here from 2 to 4 years. They would receive 15 days of PTO or vacation and personal time. It is not sick time. And then we have a whole thing that we went through as far as how much they could carry over and that kind of thing. Maximum PTO can be carried over to the following calendar year. And it has to be used in that calendar year. Any other questions? Did I explain that? So
Yeah, so you could get 3 weeks vacation plus the sick plus the state.
no, just you get 3 weeks, up to 15 days, plus the 5 sick days, and that's it.
So 4 weeks vacation.
Well,
Basically.
3 weeks and
Yeah,
sick time.
okay.
So did you understand that the sick time that was allotted when both things were put together took the same amount of vacation time, 3 sick days? The new one takes 3 days off the accumulated PTO, but adds 5 days to the sick time, so that it is a difference of 2 more days for the new agreement than it was under the old.
Right.
Just so you're,
Oh, so you just move.
because it's hard to go from one thing to the other. Pardon?
So you just moved there and made it work.
I still didn't hear, but that's all right.
I didn't understand. So the employees, a full-time employee actually benefits by 2 days, assuming that they use a sick time. Remember, the sick time is for sickness, and it's very well defined what it's for. It's not like I want to go on a cruise to the Bahamas. Although nobody's cruising anywhere right now.
Actually, someone is, and they just got COVID on it.
Yeah. I thought they Chloe. Any other questions? Any further discussion? Let's move to a vote of changing this as the chart indicates. Please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carried. Next thing is the finance. Lori, did you want to talk about this or you want me?
You can talk about it, Terry.
Okay. The first thing we did is we reviewed the expenditures up through that time from our last meeting until the time of our meeting plus any ones which were this meeting. And we approved those. I believe you all received those in an email. Did anybody have any questions about that? It's coming from a committee, so second. Accepting the expenditures up until today. Raise your hand. Opposed? That carries. The last thing, or no, I don't want to say that. One of the things that we learned is we're required to have all of our funds in FDIC. FDIC insurance only insures up to $250,000. Therefore, we reopened the Morgan Stanley account, and they distributed, part of their service is to distribute it to at least two banks so that we have FDIC insurance for our tax levy. And that means if a bank were to go under, we wouldn't lose any money. The fee on that, I believe, is $50 per bank. If we have community bank, I believe it would have been $150 for the two banks. So we approved transferring more than that, but because we had to wait for checks from Morgan Stanley, we reduced it to $500,000 that Barb could pay all the bills that were coming up. And part of it was we had some larger bills due to the fact that we paid for the entire amount of the HVAC contract, plus we had a couple of other payments on that as well. We had a number of questions about our relationship with Community Bank. One of them, do we need a checking account to have the line of credit? No, we do not. Do we need to have a checking account to have the mortgage there? No, we do not. They have a number of suddenly found. I did receive confirmation that we were receiving a $2 fee for state, and he started getting that in August, and they have rescinded that. We no longer are being charged that because we originally started under Steuben. There are some other charges. I did get confirmation today that they would reduce those to half for 1 year. The question then comes, we can move all of our services to 5-star. We already have 2 checking accounts there. And it would make it much easier for transferring the funds and things like that to move it to 5-star. When it comes time to pay our mortgage, which is once a month, we would have to send a check rather than a transfer. However, one of the things we did find out is they charge us for the use of the electronic transfers and things like that. So I guess I would leave it up to the board if you would like to move things to 5-star, basically our daily checking. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, you know, we can only change if the board decides we're going to do that. Makes it a little easier, but we have had good service from Steuben Community Bank as well. No discussion? Right. The other thing, and I believe Betty Sue indicated we are going to obviously have some more bills between now and the end of which ends December 31st. But tentatively, we recommend that we take a look at $25,000 that we, because we may have some funds left over from our, to pay on the mortgage. We may find that we can have enough funds available, or we may not be able to spend that much, but it's something that we should be looking at come down the road here. We do have that possibility, certainly because we've saved so much money. Obviously, we've used less electricity, heat, all those kind of things, plus our savings on all right. Any
Terry.
questions about finance?
Terry, were you asking if we want to move an account to 5-star? I'm sort of.
If we, yeah, I did. The question was asked at our previous finance committee, and we brought it up at the board meeting. Should we move our basically our daily checking account to 5-star?
Yeah.
I know it seemed to have a feeling either way.
So right now, the account is where? It's in
It's at Community Bank
Steuben, right?
in Steuben, yeah, Warsaw, yeah.
Warsaw.
What would the savings be between them?
Well, if we stopped using the check captures, and we'd have to return it, and we stopped doing online transfers, we would save about $50 a month.
I think Barb probably would appreciate the check capture and online transfers. I'm not sure. Maybe Betty Sue might be able to better answer that.
Possibly. One of the biggest problems was this past fall when the check that the school collected on our taxes had to be deposited, and it had to go through the whatever bank we're in. It had to be hand delivered because it was too large through and be accepted that way. So Barb ended up having to take it to Henrietta, which was closed, and then he had to do it. So that was a bit of a problem and ends up costing mileage and time and whatever. We've had no problem with doing the bills out of there, but it is nice out here so when you need to do it immediately, or you need to access money immediately. The only other thing I would recommend is ask Barb for her opinion in writing for the finance committee, so that you have a definitive on the person who works with this the most closely.
Yeah, that was banned because $50 is $50, but to Barb, it might be time and huge savings. So,
well, when you paid out, I think $70-some to have a check delivered, where we've never done that before because there was always somebody who was willing to run it, and now we have to take an employee and run it. That's a bit of a problem. So in that sort of case, being able to deposit it here would have been a better thing. And then if there was something that needed to be drawn off it, it could be drawn off and then sent via the scanner without having to go through the driving and time process. But again, is the one, oh, wait a minute. Barb has a response for me to, or for you to that. She says she actually prefers local deposits because she can only do $2,000 with the remote. So that's why it had to be delivered there. And if it could be deposited here, have that particular problem.
Betty,
She is always, yes.
you cut out in the very beginning. Barb basically wants a local
Okay.
bank.
Barb has just sent me an email based on what you're discussing that says, I prefer local bank for deposit.
Okay.
A question, I guess.
We don't have to open up a new account or anything because we already have 2 checking accounts there. One is used for the daily receipts and the other is payroll, which was used prior to, was used for all of our checking. Information.
What
Basically, what
did you-
Barb was saying is for deposits, it would be best to a local bank. And then we could probably get rid of that check capturing machine, which would save us $25 a month. I believe it's 25.
A minute ago, you said 50.
That's for the combined on and the check capturing machine. There's two separate charges. One for the
okay.
online transfers and one for the check capturing machine.
Okay.
So as a board, I don't know that we need a formal motion. We just, for deposits, we will start using 5-star to make things a little easier for everyone. All right. Moving on to grounds. They did have, Anitris is absent. She didn't feel well. One of the things we discussed was NCAP signage and pricing. Betty Sue, do you want to talk? You're most knowledgeable of that, so why don't you talk about that?
The only things I have prices on right now are included in Anitris's report. And I have not gone any further on this. It's been season. And the only thing I asked the building and grounds to approve sooner than later was a sign for signage that would go underneath the mural that Stacy Kirby produced in there, because that was paid for by money donated specifically for that person to be in memory of their mother, Marion Moore. And right now it doesn't indicate anything. This signage would be like a clear band with the lettering in it, sort of like a printed off whatever. We just felt when Elizabeth and I met with Take Form, we really liked the way that looked, as opposed to putting up a small plaque underneath it that's difficult to read. So I will continue to look into other people's signages, but as you see on the sheet, it's by individual item and then at that number. For example, the end cap signs, there were 40 of them we need. Take Form is willing to work with us on any or all and any way you want to go forward with this, but I have not yet gotten pricing from anybody else. So I think you need to wait on that.
A couple of the other items, we looked at the front foyer has some pocking of it's a concrete floor, both the front foyer and the lobby. Betty Sue was going to talk with Western New York Flooring, Vinny and Ron's, which is a local concrete company and Ioga for possible vendors and pricing to refinish that flooring. I did reach out to a guy who, a couple of my friends who own a carpet store, and they said that they gave a name, does that kind of work. It is a bit of a specialty because it's a special finish. I'm sure there are other people between Vinnie and Ron's and Western New York Flooring and the one I got. I'm sure we'd be able to find a few people who could do this and make sure that that gets repaired. And
I did reach out to Western New York Flooring, and they do not do this sort of work, but he made a recommendation of another company, G&P Flooring. I have reached out to them. They have not gotten back to me yet.
okay,
Reached anybody with Vinnie and Ron, but people who do know their work have said they're strictly outdoor, but I will continue
Okay.
to try and reach them. I
again, they may know
also
someone.
took- I also took the name that Terry sent me this afternoon of his friend, and that is on my list of to-do items for
friend.
tomorrow.
I don't know the guy. Somebody gave me that name. Traffic circle, if you've been here after rain, out between the handicap and our front entrance, there does seem to be a low spot. And it's two concerns. Obviously, if there's wet and it freezes, it's dangerous. And the other thing is, over time, if that gets in between the granite curbing underneath the blacktop, that will deteriorate fairly quickly. I don't know how far that granite curbing goes down. Dan, have you had any experience with that in your construction days? No, okay. Worked up high. You didn't work down low, right? So Betty Sue's going to reach out to Fernie Frock and have that inspected. They were the ones who did the initial blacktopping of that was it last year or the year before?
Last 2 years.
2 years.
Year before, because last year we sealed it.
Okay.
I would like to wait on that until spring.
Yeah, they aren't going to be able to do much anyway.
I feel like, okay.
Another thing is the parking lot, the median, the grass median and ACE is an older section. I think it's, I'm not sure if it's from the original grocery store or was put in when the library was put in, but it does have some cracking. They've all been sealed and it's been, they've been filled and it's been sealed. I went last week. I don't see any breakup of any of the blacktop or anything at this point. We'll know a lot more in May once the freezing and thawing ends. Mary Ann from the Friends have wanted to create some kind of library entrance, and due to COVID, the committee's going to wait until later in the year to work at that. The window blinds, if you didn't know, most of the window blinds on this end, the rooms end and the children's section, we've got problems with. They're not working anymore and they're no longer in business. And Betty Sue was going to check with those and some other places to provide some quotes for replacement. We need, they need to be room darkening because they do show movies and things like that when we're in full operation. So. Any questions on that? Planning committee. We met a couple of times. Carrie, did you want to talk a little bit or just let me struggle through here?
Go ahead and struggle.
Okay. we've been working on the 5-year plan, but also Betty Sue brought to our attention what are they called, Betty Sue, the requirements for
Minimum standards
minimum
for
standards?
libraries that needs
And-
to be in place by January 1.
So we worked on that. I think we got through it all. And I inquired if I had to adopt those minimum standards, and I think the consensus was we just had to meet them. One of the things that required that we do that is we have to go through our policy handbook, which should be done almost yearly, but with it every 5 years. And so some of the things have not been done in a few years, varying from 2013 to 18. So we focused in of policies for library users. And if I can go through and show what we changed and what we didn't change, is even if we didn't change the policy, it will indicate that it was reviewed by the Hoag Library on December 9th, 2020. So the first one is 1.1 borrower registration policy. We did nothing with that. The next.
I'm going to interrupt for 1 second here. Does everybody have the copy of the things that we changed? Did you send something out or I sent out? With this said, we
Anything
went over 1.1 and 1. I sent it to Carrie and I sent it to you.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're using?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So the next thing in the book is the incident report form. We're moving that to the back where it says attachments, and that will be attachment number 11. Oh, and before we go any farther, what we're going to do is Barb is going to be retyping all these. She may have done that already.
It's
they will-
done.
Okay. They'll be placed in your folder here at the library, and you can pick them up. They'll be hole punched, and you can pick them up and replace the new things in your blue book or black book.
Can I make a comment on that before you go on?
Sure.
All right, based on the meetings that the planning committee held and the wordage that they wanted to change, because only things were amended, there was nothing changed, so to speak. I had Barb go ahead because it didn't seem that there would be any reason to not pass these. So she has taken the things that Terry is going to tell you about item by item. I have the packet for each one of you right here in my hot little hand. And what we're doing is putting it into your folder that if we were meeting on site, you would pick up when you came. We could have emailed these and had you print them off, but then to have good printers, or you might not have a 3-hole punch, and you might print them off and just not pay attention to it because that's how things go sometimes. I know that. So by doing it this way, we're going to ask that when you come into the library at some point in time, you bring your notebook with you and somebody will sit down with you and show you exactly where they're going so that all of our books will be correct and will be in the right order. Does that work for everybody? Sure it does.
Since
Okay.
I'm already here.
For me,
Okay.
1.2 Patron Code of Conduct policy. We recommended no changes. And actually that was done last January, so it's going to have 2/2020 dates on it. The censorship policy, we did not make any changes on that. Then next group of things is the Library Bills of Rights of New York State.
Complaint form though got moved to the
Yes,
attachment.
I'm sorry, and the reason I skipped over is because I had already moved it. There's a censorship complaint form that gets moved, and that will be attachment 8.
I'm going to
But
butt in for one more minute.
sure.
One of the things that the committee did, which I think will make this much easier to use, is they moved all forms and attachments to the end of the section. So instead of seeing a policy, then a form, or a policy and a form and having to go look for them, the policies will all now be located at the end of that section of the book. So it's a little confusing, but I think when you go to use it, you'll be glad they're there.
And Betty, this next group, Betty Sue was going to look to see if there's any updated things. For instance, the Library Bill of Rights. It was last affirmed in 1996. Originally adopted in 1939. But anyways, the rights of New York State, the law relating to confidentiality, the freedom to view, and the freedom to read to the end of the attachments. No number is we're going to put that at the end of the attachment section. We haven't assigned a number to it as of yet. All right. Numbers 1.4 and 1.5. One is the Hoag Internet computer use. And the other is the Hoag wireless policy. Has been a hot mess. And she said, we're going to work on them next year. And I'm thinking, why would we do that next year? That's because next year's 3 weeks away. Which I'm just getting used to. So we did not touch those, but we will hopefully in our next meeting or next couple of meetings. 1.6, patrons complaints section. The Hoag Library welcomes patron complaints as a means of improving service. The patron should contact the director by letter via email or delivered at the front desk to be given to the director, or by email. Please include name and contact information. Then another bullet, the complaint will be reviewed by the library director and board of trustees, and the patron will be notified of the review. And the process also applies to the complaints relating to the Hoag Library COVID policy. And that everybody followed that along. Basically, as we added email that reflecting that we're in 2020, not 1999, I guess. The Hoag Library COVID policy, which we passed here 2 months ago, will be moved to the complaints section and become attachment number 9. On 1.7, the only change is add the words sexual orientation after religious belief. So it'd be religious belief, comma, sexual orientation, comma, or handicap. Make the room reservation form attachment number 10. So that'll be taken out of here, put into the attachments section. 1.8 and 1.9. One is the use of the Civil War local history collection, and the other is a gift to the Swan Library. They're going to be reviewed and updated this coming year. One of the things we did find is there about staff and trustees accepting gifts and needed to be moved to an ethics portion of the book. 1.10, 1.10, the change it from volunteer policy to adult volunteer policy. And Betty Sue, maybe you can go into why we did that.
The previous policy went into all sorts of things like you must be 16 years of age, you must have a clean record, you must do this, you must do that. We have the right to accept any, all, or no one who applies to be a volunteer. So it seems easier to just say, okay, an adult volunteer is adult card. If you have an adult card, we're going to know that you're in good standing. We're not going to have somebody volunteer who doesn't care. So all this did was clear up some of the, was really messy. And everything else stayed the same.
One point one one. This is the in-house laptop loan policy. Basically, what we did, laptops we checked out to patrons with adult cards, and we eliminated in library only. We eliminated the 2-hour limitation. Then the laptops may not be left unattended. We may not load personal software. We left that in. Then laptops are available on patrons on a first come, first served basis. We eliminated that section because basically there hasn't been a problem. Patrons must abide by the written signed agreement with the library. We eliminated that because we're eliminating the signed agreement. The way it's done is somebody checks out the laptop by using their card. Hoag Library is not responsible for loss of patron data, and patrons may not alter, delete, etc. That stays the same. So we just cleaned up a little bit, made it more modern, reflecting the fact that people are going to use the laptops for as long as they need them, and also that less problem with those. We're eliminating, we're deleting the in-house laptop loan agreement. Delete the e-reader loan policy.
We have no e-readers at this time in the library. So it seems silly to have an e-reader loan policy for something we didn't have.
Right. The solicitation policy, which was 1.13, now becomes 1.12. And Hoag service, which was 1.14, now becomes 1.13. The other policy that we worked on it before that had to do with let me find it. Equipment purchase policy. It reads equipment items costing over $1,000 are subject to prior approval of the board except in an emergency. And we said that should not change.
Did we do that at the meeting? I don't remember.
Not at that meeting, we did the meeting before.
Okay, is that written down someplace? Because this is totally new to me.
I don't know if a report was written, but it was something we went over, that we were assigned to take a look at it with by the board at the last meeting. And that was the first thing we reviewed at that meeting.
All right, which meeting is this? I didn't think I missed any planning committee meetings.
You did.
No, you were there. You were there.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so I have we met on the 3rd, which was
Because
the most
remember
recent one.
you were debating whether it was 3,000 or than.
Oh, all right, I didn't know that. Do you remember it coming to an agreement at that meeting? Because I don't.
Yeah,
I said,
Yeah.
the last I heard is it was going to be discussed.
the 4.2 equipment purchase policy that we agreed on.
And what is the 4.2?
Equipment purchase policy.
That's, okay. Well, look at it and abide by it, that's all, not my problem.
The other policy, which had to do with other kinds of funds disbursement policy, we could not find, quite frankly. I have an old one which talked about $500. And there was apparently one that says something 1,000 and 3,000 or something of that nature. And
Okay, so I
we
find
couldn't find those in our books.
4.2.
Yep,
So you're saying 4.2 is just going to stay the same or you're changing it?
it's staying the same. We voted,
Okay.
we recommend that it stay the same.
Okay,
What meeting
The-
did it stay the same at?
Well, it was a meeting that Kerry was elected chairman. What was that, 11-3? Kerry, do you remember?
11,
Pardon me?
I have 11/17
11-17.
because it was the week after the board meeting was planning committee. And I do remember just, I said, I have a little sticky note on my computer that somewhere along the line, I was given permission to spend up dollars with an existing vendor or up to $2,000 with a new vendor. And I do remember discussing it because I said, there, you need to let me know, is this policy then just, do I need to throw those numbers away then? Because they don't matter anymore because we're only,
That's disbursement policy only, which is different than equipment purchase.
You know, what passed this or looked at this a few years ago, I don't think our books were ever updated.
No.
It was brought up at one of the meetings that the director, and this is under purchasing limit, to remain $3,000 for the current vendor and $2,000 for
yep, a new vendor.
a new vendor. And
Mhm.
this was approved by the board back in 19, I think it was May 8th, 2019. So we need to clarify the difference between these two policies.
Right. Yes, because one is, to me, one is equipment, one's purchasing.
But if you guys had the meeting on 11/17 and you said this is a new policy, how are we as a board, are we voting on that policy now? I mean, because you're on board, Carrie's on that board, Gloria's on that committee, I'm saying.
No,
I'm
Gloria's
not
not.
I'm not on that committee.
Oh, okay.
Dan is on it.
Okay,
And at the
so
11-17, we looked at 11. Three point,
No, it's 4.2,
4.2,
4.2.
and we said we would leave it, the equipment purchase policy as. Okay, so there's, for equipment purchases, that is what the planning board is recommending.
Are you hoping to pass all of the policy handbook and this equipment purchase policy at the same time, or are they going to be two separate items? The first thing is all related, New York State is requiring of us. This is an individual board policy that may or may not look like any other libraries. So that's why I'm asking.
Well, all of these things are policies that the with was patron policies.
Right. And this is not patron policies.
Correct, but it is a policy of the board.
So you're saying you just want to lump all the policy changes into one motion, or you want patron policies on one and other policies on another?
Well, I'm just saying that we reviewed that policy on the 17th. The committee felt it was good the way it was, and that we recommend to the board that we continue with 4.2.
Well, I guess my question isn't clear and it doesn't really matter better
But
because I'll just do
the
whatever I'm
board can
told
do
to
whatever they want. Patron policies all at once, or we can include this either way. It doesn't matter. What is the feeling of the board?
Well, we have not done anything with this equipment purchase policy, and the items that Barb did in hopes that he approved tonight and I can start giving them to people come on board are different than one. So I don't care that you pass, but I hope if you pass them, you'll do them, because one is going to our minimum standards. And it just to do this for my clarification, that's all. As far as
Well,
what the policy
basically-
says, I have no problem with it at all. But it being part of something that it's not even related to. That's all.
So all you're saying is you'd rather pass the first part, which is strictly state standard, one motion, and then the change to, or the staying the same of 4.2 and any other ones after that is a second motion just for clarification.
Yes, yes, because then I can show by motion exacted to approve the things that are necessary for the New York State minimum standards that are supposed to be put into effect January 1st. Give a hoot about our equipment purchase policy.
Okay.
Okay, does
so-
that make sense?
So since we've already covered all the stuff that has to be required by New York State, correct?
Mhm.
I guess make a motion possibly that we approve the first set of policy changes
Coming
through,
from committee, so we don't. Second,
well,
kind of because we're splitting them.
it still doesn't need to. It's still coming from the committee. If questions or discussions, we can, even if there is two different motions. But it's up to you by the committee, one for the state standards, one for the equipment or whatever 4.2 is, just like that.
okay, we can take them separately. The first group, which had to do with patron policies. Yes. Yes. So we're dealing with the patron policies. We listed the changes. You, if they're approved, some of them didn't change at all. So if you vote aye, what will happen is you'll receive them in your folder, and you'll be able to add them to your book and destroy the old ones. And they'll all say approved, reviewed and approved by the Board of Trustees on December 2020.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any discussion on them? Any questions? All in favor, either raise your hand or say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Opposed? And those are passed. The other one
Okay,
then.
before
is-
you go, I just want to give a shout out to Barb Kyler on getting this done before this meeting. We met on, when did we meet? Last week on Thursday. It took me all day Friday to get all of our stuff together so that it was able to be comprehended. I sent it out to Carrie and Terry. Carrie got back to me, said it looked good, and I gave it to Monday morning. And she has not only transcribed all this into readable form, but she has all the numbers and produced them for your book. And this would not have happened this quickly without her putting forth that effort. So I just want to give her a shout out on that.
Hey, Sue, and we like to say thank you to Barb too.
Thanks,
Yes.
Barb.
Yep.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you, Barb.
See,
The other one coming from the committee is equipment per. They're not recommending any change. They reviewed it and presented as is. And it has been this way since last reviewed on 2012. I don't know if there was any change at that point in time. It does not need a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, either raise your hand or say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried. All right. Local history is not met. The ad hoc committee on COVID, Dan actually requested last month. We did get together, but as things are pumping up, he again spoke to me earlier today and asked if we could soon. Would it be possible to get together tomorrow, late afternoon? You said, Dan, like 6, 7? What do you want? 7? Gary, would that be all right with you?
Yeah, that's all right.
Betty Sue, could you join us for that?
yep.
Yeah, either 6 or 7, whatever's easier for everybody else.
Zoom.
Zoom.
Did you select a time? He said either 6 or 7.
7 is good for me. Carrie, good for you? Carrie? Okay. All right, Friends of the Library, we did their minutes from November met today at 5:30. I just want to point out one kind of a sad note in the minutes. You may note that Gwen Hewson was at that meeting of the Friends, and since that time, Gwen has passed away. And very sad to hear that. Her, if you didn't know, her son Brad Pritchard is the middle school principal, and her husband Chuck. They've been married a long time. It was a surprise to everyone. So. And go to Betty Sue because she was at that meeting.
I was, and it was the first time we'd seen Gwen in a very long time. It was just so nice to see her back, and such a shock to 2 days later find out she died.
Yeah.
So we are going to purchase a brick in her honor to go out front.
Great.
And that was, I don't know if I included that, and I think I might have mentioned it in my report, was they would like to start talking about doing something to at least acknowledge why those bricks are there. Not all for people who have died, some in honor of people, but they'd like us to create some, they'd like to pay for it, but create some sort of signage and maybe a bench that could go out there that could make it feel like it's more of a statement than just a sidewalk with some bricks in it. So I'll be happy to keep you posted on that as they come up with ideas.
I put a review of the EV station. Since that last meeting, I called around because there aren't very many charging stations. There are none. Well, I'm sorry, there is one in county over at the county building. And I believe that's just for the RTS buses. And then Brockport and Bergen has 2, and I believe Brockport has 2. And so I called and asked, how did they do it? How did it work? And they each did a little different way. If you don't know, Bergen's a municipal, has their own municipal power. They have an electric division of their buildings and ground, or their buildings and grounds, I guess you'd call it. And they hooked it up. Over at the county, they did all the prep work, and then RTS had a vendor come in. They have a chart, what they call it's the largest company, a charge point charger there. Brockport did a similar thing. And so but what they did, one of the persons recommended I call up this company, EV Charge Solutions. What they do is they come out and develop a plan, kind of like an architect or an engineer would do. They take a look at what you have. They said a lot of times the problem, you don't have enough conduit. I said, well, we have light poles out there that he says generally you don't have sufficient, I'm going to say amp, but I may be wrong. Also have to have a circuit breaker, and Virgin has their circuit breaker on the light pole that it's hooked up to, and they have a lock on it. The gentleman I talked to from EV Charge Solutions said they recommend it actually be generally inside a building for safeguarding. So they basically would plan, this is where to put it. They would help us with the NYSERDA grant. He also indicated there were other grants that have just the last 2 to 3 weeks. And they would help us get the proper forms to get those done. And he said we'd actually be able, it'd probably be cheaper for us to actually put in 2 charging stations, and that it would probably cost us nothing to do it. There's no charge for project planning and the opportunity to quote or bid on the project. Their revenue comes from their equipment sale. And I asked them, and they said what they do, what kind of charger we would use if we use them is because they're out away from Henrietta, they would recommend a local electrician who is for that specific, or electricians who have expertise in the specific kind of charger we want. And he says it's better that way because if something goes wrong, we don't have to drive out from Henrietta. You can call them up and they can drive across the village and fix it. So I'm wondering if the board would like to have this EV Charge Solutions come out and take a look at it and at least discuss what we should do and how we could go about it. What it solves is, because I found out one of the things you have to do is you have to have a footer that goes down 2 feet to put the charge station on, and make sure the conduits run correctly. From what I understand, talking to not only the people from Virgin and Brockport and the county, it's not a difficult hookup as far as the electrical goes. And I talked to a couple of electricians. It's not very difficult to hook up electrically. It's fairly easy. The thing is, you want somebody who does that specific kind of charger. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Can't hurt. Well,
If they come up with a plan and we don't like it, we don't pay them anything.
But we have to use their type of charger, correct?
10 different chargers they have. They have 10 to pick from.
What was
And
Go Forth?
I
gonna
asked
use?
about,
I can't tell you what right now I can look that up and let you know. I was given a list by NYSERDA of approved chargers. And when I gave the list to Nathan at Go Forth, he priced them out and came back with the one. There were certain for state funding, which include that it has to be able to record data, and the data must be able to be downloaded by the state in order for the state to give you grant money for this. And there were cheaper ones, but the ones that did this were the ones that we had to choose from if we were going through NYSERDA. Now, maybe what Terry's looking at with different money from another place, I don't know. I talked to NYSERDA. I think I mentioned it at the last meeting that their window closed, but that they felt if we went ahead and did this sooner than later, that there would certainly be money for it because They looked up the amount left in the fund for me and said there's still $7.9 million. So I have the state required, which I'm going to imagine is probably the same list that EV charging is going to produce. And there's no reason we can't compare if they aren't the same. But I do have, I think there were 4 chargers that met them for the state. And the one that Nathan recommended at the time was actually the least expensive because it didn't have any bells and whistles that we would need here at the library. We weren't going to try to charge people for it. We weren't going to make them scan their library card. It was just going to be here to use. So I have spoken to Nathan and let him know that the board's wishes were to bid it, and he will get back to me with his bid, and then we can compare it to whatever, because no one has responded to anything that we have put out on social media, on our sign, or in the library. So I think it will have to be, if you want more bids, it's going to have to be by going through something like this EV charge solution.
The other advantage I saw with the EV charge, because they did indicate there are other funding sources that would reduce our.
Yeah, well, do remember that our total cost, I mean, yes, anytime you can reduce it, but at the time, if we'd done this when we first started talking about it, our total commitment from the library would have been less than 800.
Mhm.
So if they can provide 800 more dollars, or if the price has gone up and they can provide more, great.
He said there were $2,000 to $3,000 extra.
Okay.
And like I said, he said if you could put in 2, it would actually be cheaper.
Well, that's what that's what the board had approved last year was 2.
No,
Yeah, that's what I thought there was 2.
2
Yeah.
dual.
So you're saying
2
4 units,
4
4
units.
charging units?
Yeah, 2
wow.
poles, 4 charging units. He said it was cheaper. I mean,
Okay.
they would come out, give us a plan, and then we would make a choice. Like I said, they only get paid if we buy the stuff from them.
So you sent me an email on that today. Is that I should be checking on, or are you planning on continuing with it?
I will contact them and give them your contact information if that's what the board would like.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Dan? Gloria?
Yep, I'm okay.
Yeah, if we wanted to get another bid, I mean, why not have 2? I
Mhm.
mean, New York State has them all on their website. I'm looking at it right now of all the ones that are approved.
That's where I'm
Right.
from.
Right. That's
Debbie, how do
He's
you feel?
saying is there's more information that I don't have. So I only have what I got from the state.
Right. Debbie, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I certainly agree that at least get an idea of what it's all going to cost, and so. I mean, I've never been a big one on this charging station at all, anyways. So I'm not a good one to comment. So
Kathy, how do
whatever
you-
the majority says, I'm going with.
Kathy, what do you feel?
Sorry, I
Kathy?
was trying to unmute. I kind of,
Okay.
I don't really know enough about it to have an opinion.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
willing to defer to the majority.
I will tell you this, for those of you who don't drive very far, this guy was very knowledgeable. He said, right now Hyundai has a special on, plus with the state rebates, you can lease an electric car. I think it's their new Ioniq for $99 a month. And I think it's a 10,000 mile per year. So if you don't drive very far, it might be a problem. He wasn't trying to sell it to me. We just happened to be discussing it because Jason, my wife and I have been looking at them. So I'll email him tomorrow, have him get a hold of Betty Sue. they would have somebody come out, take a look at the site, take a look at the panel box and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, they would, if we would choose a particular kind of charger, then they would give us the name of electricians in the local area who could potentially do it.
Can we kind of put a time limit on this? Because we've been talking about this for close to a year now.
More.
Okay, more than a year.
Yeah, well, I'll email him tomorrow. He was ready to send somebody out this week, so.
Okay.
But I told him I couldn't do anything without board approval. Okay, new business. Betty Sue, you want to talk about the lawn care contract?
Yeah. Jake Stinson of Turf Pro has submitted a bid for next year's lawn care. Over the past couple of years, it's been the practice of the board that if we've been happy with a vendor and the price is either the same or within reason, that for 3 years' time, we don't have to rebid. So what I'm going to do with lawn care contract, because this will be the 3rd year. He's done a terrific job. And if we take care of this before the end of the month, we get the discount. So that is one item. Then, okay, do you want to one at a time?
Yeah, let's deal with that. So there's no increase in price?
No.
Okay. So how do people feel? Jake does a great job. I want to be truthful and honest. He does my lawn and does a great job. He's a great person. Dan, so yeah, he has to be truthful. He's a lion, just like Dan. So how do people feel about this? The agreement was that as long as there was no specified, we would just re-up the contract without rebidding it.
I'm good with it. The lawn looked great.
Yeah, he does a nice job. Could I have a motion to
I'll make a motion. This is Linda.
a second?
I'll second. Debbie.
Linda made the motion. Could I have a
I'm
second?
seconding Debbie.
Debbie? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay.
The next thing I sent out just this afternoon was a letter that I think I explained Teresa had brought into me that was sent to her via Leadership Orleans. I talked with Terry a little bit about it this afternoon because they're looking for the months of December and I think January to help with the COVID testing that will be taking place every Wednesday at the fairgrounds. What they don't want to do is have different volunteers every week because they will need to train them. So they're looking for someone who can commit 4 hour stretch, 1 or was it 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5. It's in the letter you've got that could do that for that extended period of time. I told Teresa I thought it was a really good idea and that board for a couple of reasons. Number one, because if anybody on the board is interested in volunteering, we have the contact information and you can have it. Number two, I do have at least one employee, probably the maximum we could handle, who would be willing to this, but it would require that we would pay this person because there is not enough hours in the week to make up for lost hours. Like, for example, Mike is here tonight, he will be here, but he has office hours on certain days. So he just comes in a little later and stays a little later. We're not able to do that. So the two questions are, take that information. If you belong to another organization like Dan with a, take that information to them. We can be a help the county get this information out. And if you think it's important for a member of the staff at the Hoag Library to participate in it, we would be happy to supply a person and we can cover the hours and take advantage of making the most of that as far as letting the community see that we are participating as good community neighbors. So that's entirely up to the board. And I'll do whatever you want me to do.
I think it's a good idea. Concern is it could be a risk to that person, doing that volunteering. That's my take. I read the letter and everything. I just think it would be a risk to the staff person, but if they want to do it, but I don't know if we should be paying them for doing that. That's up to the board. If I'm on,
How many hours a week?
It was 4 hours. I'm looking for my copy of the letter and I put it in another file. Here it is.
Or how many weeks, Megan?
It says from 1 to 4, so it's 3 hours on Wednesdays in December. So it's 3 hours a week. And they're looking for 30 or 40 volunteers who could do that during the months of December and possibly January.
So we're gonna pay the volunteers?
Yep.
The
Well, I
one that
wouldn't-
comes, if
I wouldn't let
one
you-
staff member
I
comes from
wouldn't
the
let you
library.
send more than one.
Say that again, Mr. Wilbert?
If it's a staff member from the library.
Right, I mean, but it's really not a volunteer then. That was my whole,
correct,
Oh,
No.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
right.
You're right.
it's like doing community service hours for the school, getting paid at your part-time job to do them.
Mhm.
My take, if they want to volunteer, they can volunteer, but I don't think that we should be paying them to volunteer. That's my take.
Mhm.
That was kind of mine as, Gloria. And again, the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
correct.
then are you saying that because of the time commitment, there's no other time that if somebody that works at the library wants to volunteer, they have to do it during that time frame and they couldn't make up those hours otherwise? Right.
I'm not
So they
positive
don't
on
have the
that.
option of,
Right.
would they have the option of coming in at another time and being paid for the hours they're missing?
That could be a possibility if we look at the schedule and realize that all of we're open for 52 hours. So if this was a full-time person, there are still 12 hours that they're not scheduled. If they
I
wanted
just don't
to
think
work-
I don't think somebody should get penalized to essentially help the community.
I
You know what I'm
get you.
saying? If there's a way
Yeah.
that you,
So if there was a place to give an employee who wanted to volunteer for this 3 more hours, they could have those 3 hours off to go and volunteer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And my thing is, again, you have to commend people for volunteering to do this, but there is a risk because you're possibly seeing hundreds of people who could be asymptomatic but positive and bringing that back into the library. So you'd have to be, in my opinion, very strict with your COVID policies and adhere to that.
I agree with Linda on this.
they
Well, you-
mentioned that they would provide PPE, but they don't say what. So if people are wearing gowns and masks and shields and, they're probably pretty well protected, but without knowing that, that's a question I guess I would imagine that if you're going to volunteer, they would probably rapid test you every time you went to volunteer as well, because they wouldn't want somebody that was infected testing others.
Right.
So there's probably some precautions in place, although I don't know how rigid.
Is it something you would want me to call and ask about? Or do you just want to say it's not really worth the risk?
I guess I would ask the staff if anyone would even really be interested in it.
I know one person who is interested.
Okay. Then I guess the question would be, I mean, in my mind is, how, well, we've all seen how dress they are in PPE, is that volunteer going to be getting the same PPE equipment as what we see if we drive up
Correct.
to a hospital?
That's why I'm saying, do you want me to check on this? And then I can send an email to the board and you can decide that way. Or again, you can say, we don't want to take this risk. You know, that's a perfectly legitimate response.
I'm
I'm just bringing it to you because it was brought to me.
I'm really super cautious, so I'd be a little leery of it, but on the other hand, we have to have people who do this kind of thing, particularly in a rural county, because we just don't have the availability of testing. Although I think Oak Orchard is doing some, but in fact, I know they're doing some because I know a nurse at Oak Orchard. But you know, that may be for their patients, and I think we're going to see a lot well today in Orleans County.
Yeah, I believe we had 27 new cases today in the county.
Okay. So whatever the board wants, I tend to be very leery, but I don't want to be the one that says anything. But I would guess I would at least say ask about the PPE.
Okay.
PPE, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Are
I
you
guess
happy?
it does say in there, if to deal with the public, you know, they could put input data or calling back residents. You know, so we could limit technically the volunteer and say, hey, we don't want you testing these sick people, but if you wanted good type keyboarding skills or
Phone
calling
calls.
back, you have good phone skills. I mean, we could limit it that way. Still have them volunteer, but hey, you're not going to be out there dealing with just bringing the risk
Yeah,
back
right.
into the library.
You know, I think that's a good point, Linda, and I'm going to imagine that their medical staff would be more likely to be the ones sticking the swabs up noses, because you have to be careful how you do it.
If it's a rapid test, though, the people do it themselves.
Okay.
If
Okay.
it's
And I don't know.
yeah, if rapid test you do yourself, the other tests they do it to you.
Okay. Well, do you want me to just call and ask a couple questions then, and at least let the board know what the response is?
That sounds good.
Yeah,
Because this information said before, each send an employee, one of us sitting here, one of you sitting here, I'm working, might feel it's important enough to do, or you may know someone who wants to do it. So I'm going to call and ask the questions anyway. And then I will send it out to you and you can do it then. Does that work?
works for me.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I have something here written down under new business on health. Terry, I don't remember what that was for.
In yesterday's blurb from the health department,
Oh, that was it. Yep.
they have asked all businesses and agencies to begin asking on a voluntary basis for people to register that, you know, I came into the library, you know, and have it set up by hours. Just name and contact information of some sort. Because they feel, well, for one thing, they are getting cases, and they're concerned with contact tracing. It'd be my recommendation we go along with the health department ask. It is voluntary, but and truthfully, infected here at the library are pretty small, I think, because of the amount of time people here are here. And also because of our ventilation system. So,
We do that for the employees though, right? They sign up for temperature.
yes, yeah,
So
and my
I mean,
knowledge is,
we can just do the same thing for people walking in.
yeah,
Just simple
it
ask.
has to be voluntary.
What do you mean it has to be voluntary if they want their temperature taken?
No, just that they put down their name and contact information. I don't want to say name and address. It could be their phone number, email.
We can make it so they have to sign in though, correct? Because as a business, you can require that.
Yeah.
Your phone number, email, they would have to report their temperature going in if,
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, then if you want to, is that board saying if they're coming in, and somebody wants to use the library, have to sign in?
Didn't we go over this a month or two ago and it got turned down unanimously?
Yes.
But the numbers are up now. So
And the health department's making the request.
Did they put that in writing anywhere, Terry, that I can use when we put out some sort of log, if that's what you decide to do?
It was in yesterday's, I don't know if it was into. They have a new format announcing when there's a time when they can't do contact tracing. It's not in today's, but it's in yesterday's, just asking
And yes, I'm.
today's article. And it was right above their contact tracing. It had, because Mexican restaurant in Medina had a couple of different times where somebody had COVID or, and they said it was just a lot more efficient because, some people don't look on the website. Yeah, I don't see anything. I don't see anything in today's article. So are we agreed that we should do contact tracing? Anybody object to it? I don't want to say contact tracing. We're not doing contact tracing, just a sign in with contact information.
All right, in the Hub article from yesterday, it says we encourage all businesses to take down numbers and contact information, time in attendance at their business to assist with contact tracing. Should someone be positive for COVID-19, the health department said. This may eliminate the need for a press release if we are at potential close contacts. The one concern I would have about that is if they eliminate press releases and someone didn't leave their name. So if someone went to Mariachi and didn't leave their name, so they don't get traced because their name isn't there and there's no press release, they don't even know to watch for symptoms. I'm not happy that they would eliminate the press release part.
They said that they're doing a different kind of release. It's like a table and says business potential community. Oh, shoot. Come on. Community COVID-19 exposure. And for instance, this says O'Lacey's Irish Pub in Batavia, right. December 2nd, 12 noon to 1 p.m. So all they're asking is for help for contact tracing.
But I'm sure we could always request the press release also.
I would hope.
it says this ain't the need for a press release or a press alert if we are able to contact potential close contacts. I have no problem with contacting close contacts, but I think they still need to put out press releases. Because let's say you met somebody in mariachi parking lot and you never went into the restaurant, but you stood outside and had a conversation. And now they're only going by people who wrote their names down. You're not going to get notified. But if they said you were at mariachi between 12 and 1 o'clock and you're going, oh, crud, I was out in the parking lot meeting with so-and-so. They're two separate items. I just wish they wouldn't stop the alerts.
Well,
I
from what it looks
totally
like,
agree with,
Pardon? What'd you say, Carrie?
I agree.
yeah, yeah, because they're people who you may not be able to get a hold of. But from what it looks like is they're going to have this table, plus they want to do, but I don't know. I can't speak for the health department. All I know is what I read in the paper.
Okay, so aside from if the outbreak happened at the library, we'd probably just put it on our banner thing anyways outside saying, hey, if you're here between 11 and 2 on Wednesday,
Yes.
go get a test. So we don't have to worry about their press release.
Okay.
So are we going to make a motion? Do we want people to sign in?
Yes, let's do it with a motion because we're part of our disaster plan or COVID plan.
Are you going to require that they sign in? Because a minute ago you said volunteer.
I said volunteer, but other people said require.
I would say require. If you walk in the building,
Okay.
it's part of your use.
Okay,
And
can I have a second for that?
Does anybody I'm sorry, we'll discuss after the second.
Ann? Do you have that, Megan? Linda did it and Dan was a second. Okay, now time for discussion.
If someone refuses, does the front end staff have to tell them to? We don't allow them in without masks.
Right.
Is this going to be another requirement to enter the building?
I would say so because it's required or it's an ask from the county. Basically, to keep everything open in the county. So if we're going to adopt this thing for the county, then yeah, put your name down. They could sign it Mickey Mouse. We're not going to really check, but sign your name.
I thought of that.
Scan a temperature and be off on your merry way. It's not that big of a deal.
No, it's not.
It's not for those who are willing to do it. It will be for some.
Wonder if we put a sign on the door, just like we have with the masks.
Oh, we're going to have to. We'll
Yeah.
have to.
And
Yep.
what they recommend is you reference that as per Genesee Orleans Health Department, we request that all people sign in. Or all people are required to sign in. Everybody good with that?
Would it be just their name and a phone number, or? I would hesitate. People probably don't want to put their address down. I don't know.
No, I wouldn't.
I
I
wouldn't.
just contact information. The places I've had to do it, I've had to give my phone number.
Okay.
Not
No,
that I
there's
could
some,
very much-
there's some places you walk into and they have the sheet you gotta fill out, answer the questions. Do we
Yeah,
want to do that instead of the addresses with just the name? And have them, have you been in contact with anybody? Have you shown any symptoms? There's a little checklist. Do we want to do something like that instead or no?
So at my company, we sign in with our name. Everyone has to do it. You take your temperature. We have hand sanitizer there. You answer the 3 questions. Well, we have them actually sign it too. So you have to print your name and write it, but it's a simple form.
Mhm.
It's not that difficult.
I've not been to somewhere where you have to put your phone number or address down. I have been to places where they ask for your name, they ask where you're going in the building, if it's, somewhere where that is, and they'll do the screening questions, but you probably will get some pushback about phone numbers.
I think the
So
screening
another
questions would do
question.
it.
Another question I have is, when you go into the dentist office, you sign in and then it's covered over your name so nobody else can see it. Because otherwise it's, it could be an invasion of privacy.
Well,
What I'd
that-
love to do, and I can call Nioga tomorrow to see if there's any way we can scan library cards.
Well, the thing is, when you walk into the dentist, though, that's HIPAA. So that's
Right.
different.
Right, I
We're-
know that, Linda, but what I'm saying is people may not want their name and contact information sitting there.
And there are ways of doing that without, you could have individual slips of paper. I do, but you have to make those numbers private because that's where people are going to push back.
I
Right.
see.
Right.
So what format do we want to use? Linda's talked about doing temperature checks and all that, although I'm not going to get into whether it's useful or not, because so many places I go to take your temperature now. What's the feeling of the board? Do you want fill out a temperature checks? Do you want them to fill out, at least answer the 3 questions?
Yeah, I was just throwing out there what we did, just as
Right.
a reference, same as
Right.
Mrs. Harling. Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah. Whatever the board feels is appropriate. I mean, people want to come in, if they want to come in and drop off a book and go pick one out, I don't think they want to spend lots and lots of time doing that. They probably might end up spending more time filling out a form than getting their stuff, but I want to be as careful as possible. So whatever the board thinks. And I'll entertain a motion.
I think
Whatever.
those pre-screening questions might be the best way to go.
Okay. Like an individual card?
No, like the sheets you fill in, like yesterday when I had to go get my fingerprints done. You had to fill out, have you been in contact with anybody? There was like 3 quick questions and that's
Right,
it.
yeah. Have you traveled
then you
outside the
use-
county?
Yeah, yeah, you sign. It takes like 30 seconds.
Okay.
I wonder if this could be done on an iPad.
I was
So
just trying
somebody
to
could
think, I was
walk
trying to think of a way you
in-
could put it in Excel. Yeah,
Right, right.
and have it
And-
autofill a thing and it disappears and then brings up another blank. I was already trying to
Yep.
figure out how to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know when we went to soccer games this year, schools had a link that you could click on and do it ahead of time. So you could do it from your own phone. So you weren't even touching anything that belonged to that. But so you could do that as an option, but you'd have to have it on the website or somewhere where people could access it if they were coming in.
Right.
Well, that's
And
true.
Mrs. Harling, do you know what
Yeah.
school?
I know Roy Hart did it, and I'm trying to remember who else. One of them was one of the sectional schools, maybe Springville.
Okay, but Roy Hart's a smaller school.
Roy Hart definitely did it, yes. And the coaches all sent us a link, but I'm sure they had it on their website too.
Yeah, my son's mother works for BOCES in Roy Hart, and she's got to do that. Every morning she goes there. She's got to get on her phone and fill out the questions.
Now, Megan said that if we used a Google form and it could be saved to Google Drive and then we'd have the information, but it'd just disappear.
Yep.
So something. So could I have a motion and we'll try to get that moving?
I
Make-
thought we had a
okay.
motion in a second.
Okay. Okay.
What was the motion?
Megan, do you want to read the motion? I'll turn off so that you can do it.
So all I have for the current motion is that Linda made a motion to require patrons to sign in when they enter the building, and that was seconded by Dan. So if anything else is going to be added to that, we would need an amendment to that initial motion.
I would say that the pre-screening questions.
That's what I was gonna say as well, Dan. Just the 3 simple questions.
Yeah,
I think actually Dan made the motion to amend it and Linda seconded it, I guess we would say. So sign in and answer the 3 questions.
Yes.
And if we can find a way to do that, like on Google Forms or on an iPad, it'd make it even easier.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand, please.
Aye.
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 Opposed? It passes. Thank you. That's it for the agenda. Are there any concerns around the table as we go through? Failing that, could I have a motion for us to move into executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Second? Dan made the motion. Gloria, you second? Okay. All in favor of moving into executive session, say aye or raise your
Aye.
hand, either one.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll take a few minute break. Megan and Betty Sue, I would ask, and I would ask Mike to stick around. Mike, are you there?
I'm here.
He's here.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll sign off
No,
then.
what we did
Good
last
night.
time is good night, because it has to be recorded. Okay, we're back recording.
We're back.
Okay. We didn't vote on it. Could I oh, we did. I'm sorry, we did vote on that. We have a motion, we have from the committee an employment agreement with 2 changes. And we don't need a second from that, I believe. If we make changes that we can proceed on. So all in favor of the employment agreement as amended, please say aye.
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 And position. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I now need unless there's any more business to come before the board, I need a motion to adjourn. Gloria made a motion to adjourn?
I did too. Linda made the motion and I second.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear. Linda, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.